I am Bree Luck. I am the founder of the Awkward Sage Network and the host of the Pause to Go podcast. And at Awkward Sage, we offer a variety of podcasts that offer insights for personal, professional, and spiritual development. And today we have a really special guest, someone who embodies the spirit of what it really means to live authentically, wildly, and with a deep, deep connection to our inner selves. I would love to welcome Chloe De Sousa. Hi, Chloe.
Yeah. Hello, Bree.
So before we jump into this Q&A that Chloe has so kindly agreed to do, I want to extend an invitation to everyone joining us. If you have not listened to the podcast episode that featured Chloe, that is Going Feral at 50, How to Reclaim the Sensual Self and Love Life on the Pause to Go podcast, give it a listen after this Q&A. I will link it in the show notes, or I'll link it in the comments after the Q&A, and you can go and listen to it there. It's a beautiful episode. And Chloe, it has gotten so much attention from people. I think we really needed you right now. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Chloe. She is not just a guest. She is a catalyst for change. She is a sex, intimacy, and relationship coach who specializes in somatic approaches. Chloe guides individuals through their most intimate transformations. And her work is a profound invitation to deepen the relationship not only with others, but with oneself. Chloe's company, Feral Grace, beautifully encapsulates her philosophy that within our wild, untamed selves is a grace, a strength that when unleashed can lead us to a more fulfilled and vibrant existence. So today we are here to break barriers, to ask questions that we've been afraid to voice, and to find answers that resonate within our deepest selves. We are going to talk about sex. So if you are in a public place, or if you are or if you have young children around and you're not ready for them to hear this conversation, just be mindful of where you are and who can be hearing this. And if you are not interested in this conversation or feel like you may be offended by it, I encourage you to just keep on scrolling, not strolling. You can stroll, but keep on scrolling. So we put out a call for some questions for Chloe to answer today. And we have a bunch of them. We have some really good questions lined up from people. But if you have additional questions that you would like to ask as we're talking, drop them in the comments. We will try to keep up with them. And if we can't keep up with them, then we will definitely comment in the comments later on. So feel free to drop anything in the comments. So whether you're here live or catching us through the replay, we encourage you to engage and to join us in this collective journey of awakening. One more thing, please, please, please note that this is a conversation meant for entertainment purposes only. We are not serving as your therapist or your medical advisor here, and we encourage you as we move into sensitive topics. If something is coming up for you, please talk to a trusted professional in a safe environment. We want you to get the support that you need, and we hope that this conversation encourages you to do that. All right, Chloe, welcome to the Q&A. It is such an honor to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. This is so great.
It's such a joy. Are you ready for us to dive right into questions?
I am. Yeah, I was born ready for this.
It's true. It's true. We have the Feral Club, everyone. We've decided that we have the Feral Club. And because you're watching this, I believe that anyone watching this is a part of the Feral Club now, would you say?
I absolutely would. With all the responses we got and all the views that we got on the podcast, it was definitely like, there are so many of us. And for anybody listening that thinks I'm not quite feral enough, you are. You are.
Oh, I love that you said that. We may return to that if we have time later, because that just brought up something for me. Like, woo! Just brought up some, am I feral enough? All right, question number 1. How do I keep my sensuality and sexuality alive as a busy parent with many demands?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's very personal. But the one thing, the heavy demand on you as a parent means that you don't body reference as much as a person who is single or doesn't have heavy demands on them. So in order to really keep that sensuality and sexuality alive, body referencing as much as you can is a really just very easy, quick route back towards yourself in a few moments. First of all, we don't want to add pressure to you because you have loads of pressure already because you're a busy parent. And secondly, like as a parent, we've all got that place, I'm sure we all know it, that, oh, I haven't even got time to pee. So what you don't want is another demand that I've also got to have sex with myself and sex with another person. So the connection with your sensuality and your sexuality could be really simple. It could be, could you give me a foot massage? It could be, I want to have a bath on my own. I mean, that feels like luxury in the early days, right? When their kids are really young. It could be, I want to walk alone in the woods. Or, so keeping that alive, it doesn't want to become a to-do list. It wants to become the smallest moment that you can manage, given your heavy demand, to awaken that little part of you that you know exists. And the last thing I would say is have the confidence that it never goes away. It just needs a bit more time and space. When I became a mother, people were like, "Oh, I don't recognize you." I was like, "I do. It's all going on inside me." You might not have access to it, but I still know I'm absolutely singing and dancing, and it will come back when it has more space to emerge. You're doing great.
Oh, I love that. Can you tell us a little more about body referencing? You mentioned that, and I don't know what it is.
Okay. I forget how geeky I am.
We love
Body
geeky.
referencing. Yeah. Body referencing is really awareness of what your body is feeling. So you could, I'm tired is often what the body's saying when you're a busy parent. But it could just be taking a single moment when you sit down to feel the weight of your body on the seat. It could be just taking a tiny extra longer moment with the cup of tea or even noticing I am drinking tea, even though actually you're holding your toddler's hand, you're wiping up some cat sick and you're drinking tea. So you're just noticing what's happening in your body. Even if it's my shoulders are really tense, that's a body reference point. So there's a little moment between you and your own body.
Thank you for that. I do think about when my children were younger, and my children are grown now, but when my children were home and we were so busy, and how I did forget to check in with my body, to take note of how my body was feeling and responding to the world around me. Really helpful.
Mm. Mm.
Shall we move into the next question?
Yeah, because there's so many good ones. I mean, I was really, really overwhelmed with the beauty of the questions and the bravery of women because I was in a session this week and this happens regularly to me. My clients will say, there's nobody else that I can talk to about this stuff. And actually, we all want to talk about it, but maybe anonymously is a good way to start.
Hmm. I think it is. I think it is a good way to start. So thank you for making space for the women in our community to do this. The next
Mm.
question is, it's very interesting because I think that we feel it throughout our lifetime, which is, how do I love my body despite all its changes?
This is such a lovely one, and also there's a cultural context here. So if you haven't yet heard the podcast that Bree put out when we were discussing this, the love letters to self is really key in that, because your relationship with yourself starts on day one and it'll end on day X. So you want to be in relationship with yourself the whole time. And what happens as we age or as we get older is somehow, like, the status that we have in society, somehow, I would call this patriarchy, really, but we see old people aging, and somehow instead of them stepping into their own authority, we start to diminish the fact of our presence in society. And so really what we want to be doing to love your body through the changes is have a countercultural movement towards what culture tells us, that, oh, we're no longer attractive. Well, actually, what about if we were really proud of the fact of how far we'd lived? What if we were proud of the fact that, my breasts are now saggy, but I breastfed 2 kids, right? That should be like, a medal for each breast. What about if we were proud of the body story that it carries? And really, that's the way we should be looked at, as well as us looking at ourselves in that way. So it's about really practicing that story. I'll never forget when I can tell a personal story about this, really, as well, because I practice this myself. I just had my first baby, and the woman looked down between my legs and she went, "Oh, you need a little stitch." And I was like, I needed a little stitch. I just had a baby. And I said, why would I need a little stitch? And because there was nothing going on but this, little stitch. And she said, oh, well, for cosmetic purposes. And I just turned to her and I just said, I think we've been through enough. Because the cosmetic purpose, you see, there's nothing wrong with somebody wanting a little stitch, but the cosmetic purpose thing seemed to indicate that it was about somebody looking at my body and judging that I had the need for a little stitch, as opposed to, this might be sore for me, or this proves I've had a baby. You try getting a baby's head out, So I was really adamant that we were perfect, and my petals are absolutely perfect. And yes, I've had a baby. They show that. That's even more beautiful. So really coming from that place of pride with what a woman's body can do and has been through, and the story it shows as a dance movement psychotherapist, I'll look at your body and see half of what's happened to you. And I love you for that. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for whatever decision you made with whatever your body went through. And when we walk around like that, with that pride, that's hot. That's really hot. That's alive. That's feral, and people will want to join you because you're right there.
It's so true. It is so true. We have, it looked like there was a little, I'm going to just pause for a second because it looks like there was a little glitch in the streaming for a little bit. So if you are just joining and you miss part of it, or part of it wasn't streaming, know that we will do a replay of the entire session from beginning to end. And so you will be able to access some of the earlier questions if the streaming cut off at that point. And we are happy to have you here now. So welcome. What you just talked about, having someone tell you what your body needed, tell you something that was wrong with your body. I hear that a lot, actually, about people who have a partner or a doctor or someone tell them something about their body that is somehow wrong, that they didn't ever know never would have occurred to them that it was wrong before. And that's because it's not. There is no wrong. So I really think it's important to have conversations like this too, because when we can normalize the spectrum of our bodies, the spectrum of our animal selves, right? Then we're not just taking one person's or one expert. We're the biggest experts on our own bodies. So thank you for, So thank you for making space for these conversations so that we're not looking to somebody else to tell us what's right or wrong with our body.
Yeah. And this is so key because it causes such a lot of suffering. And these days maybe it's more all gender, but it used to be much more sort of a female experience, people in female bodies. But really it's about how will they see me, as opposed to how do I feel inside myself. And it's very oppressive, and it's very hard to get turned on if it's just all about the person that's looking at you. And I had a beautiful client this week say, it's not about what they look like, it's about who they are. That's who I want to make love to. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah. That's powerful. Let's move on to we have a lot of questions, so let's move on to the next one.
I know.
Which is, are there ways to increase libido after menopause?
To increase libido after menopause? Yeah, well, my background is also cultural, so there is a big dogma really that women are getting older and their libido drops and no one wants to make love to them anyway, and it's just a load of bullshit. So if you have been in contact with yourself throughout your life, sexually and sensually, it's not necessarily that your libido drops. It just might be, let's have an expectation that we might make love in a slightly different way. There's a great article I read in The Guardian recently, and the couple that interviewed were saying, oh, we have loads of sex. Like every day we're retired, so we start our day with sex, then we have breakfast, And he said, oh, it's not that we make love the same way as we did in our 30s. It's just that we do less on our knees. And I just thought, so the libido might show itself in a different way. You might need more rest time. You might need to make love more slowly. You might need more tenderness, or you might need more adventure. You might then fancy outside more than you did inside previously. So it's about this thing not being static, and hearing your own libido and what it wants that might turn up sounding slightly different than it did in your 20s and 30s. And I hope so, because otherwise I'm not sure. Change is natural. You can't not change. So I hope you've changed into something else. It's exciting. If you've got a lover that you've had that long, you get to be with a whole different lover by the time they're 80, if we're busting the taboo here.
And I think that's exactly the key, what you just said. You get to be with a whole different lover. If we can allow ourselves and make room in our partnerships, if we are in partnership, if that is our sexual partner, intimate partner, if we can make room for that to change and find curiosity and to know that it's going to look different for both of us. It's going to look different for all of us, for people who are poly. It's going to look a little different, right? So to be willing to explore the new together.
Yeah. And I love what you've just said. And it's also you with you. So also with your sexuality, maybe you liked women in your 20s. Maybe you liked non-binary people in your 30s. Maybe by the time you were 40, you wanted just to make love with yourself for a few years. Perimenopausal kind of like flavor to that. And so letting your sexuality change and evolve, because when we're scared, we tend to try to make things static, and actually life's just very malleable. I'd like to try it all. I mean,
you'd like to try what?
Everything.
That's why you're here. Chloe, one of the things that came up for me as you were answering this question was there are some women who maybe didn't have much of a libido when they were younger and were shut down. I mean, many women I know felt like sex and intimacy was a duty, was something they had to do, and it wasn't tied to their sensuality. It was performative.
Mm.
And do you think it's possible for that to shift after menopause, to shift that late in life, that if
Mm.
a person who has not had a high libido all along wanted to have a high libido, wanted to have a more sensual life, do you think it's possible that late in life to cultivate a new relationship there?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because and I find this obviously a lot with the clients that I work with. The mind body intelligence is the key word there. There will be an absolute logic as to why you shut your libido down. And let's not make the body wrong for that at all. And if you want to, because you are always want to be in charge of your own trauma, if you want to digest that, to uncover different parts of yourself, to find freedom and safety where it didn't exist previously, we can do that. And that person can do it with the right practitioner or with themselves. And I really stand for this in the whole world, because your body is yours. And whenever you're ready to recover a bit more of it, because it is something that carries so many stories, you can start to, make the unfelt felt again in a way that really works for you, and then the numbing or the safety will just alchemize.
Mm.
Yeah. But never make yourself wrong. Like, we have this thing like, oh, that late in life. It's a very potent phrase, and maybe you're right on time.
Mm.
Maybe when you were 50, that was exactly when you were meant to uncover your sacred sexuality for yourself. You're right on time for you, and that's what I care about.
Mm. Beautiful. All right, here's another question. My vagina feels different. How do I not shame it?
Yeah. I think I know who asked this one. Yeah. Again, you see how culturally women are taught to be so worried about what we look like. And so my vagina feels different. I hope so, because you've lived. And it's very challenging as an exercise, and there will be a little ripple of reaction as I say this. But I would really recommend taking a mirror, putting it between your legs when you're ready to do this exercise, and having a look at her and telling her how much you love her, and looking at exactly what she looks like, and starting to gain that level of relationship with her. And she will feel different, and she'll look different over time, but she's never wrong for that. So there's the relationship where you approve of your own yoni or vagina, whatever you want to call it. That's your personal preference. And then there's the freedom in the age that we live in, and we're talking about midlife today, because hopefully we have mature lovers of whatever age they are that are willing to slap on some high-end lube and get wet and sweaty and messy, and maybe it feels different, and there's not the same amount of wetness as there was when you were 20, but you get some mature lover down there making some nice adjustments to how it all feels for you, with you, around you, behind you. Like, a mature lover would want to do that for you. And don't worry, their thighs probably are saggier than they were 20 years ago, but so are yours. So what? Who gives a shit? They love you. They want to be with you. Otherwise, they shouldn't be there.
I have a very good friend who we were at the gym, and she said, Bree, my labia has changed. My 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 labia has changed. It doesn't look the way it used to. She had just done some grooming and could see things that she hadn't seen before. And she said, and I was worried about it until I realized now it kind of looked like prayer hands upside down.
Yes.
And so now whenever I think of that, it just it makes me laugh.
Oh my gosh.
And it makes me think of it's funny and sacred at once, right? And
yes.
and
yeah. I love her. Let's go to the gym together. Oh my God, priceless. Yeah, exactly. And bow at my altar with my prayer
that's
hands.
right. Bow at my altar. I love it. I love it.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Here is a question from a podcast listener. And I know it's from a podcast listener because they referenced the episode. So here's the question. In the podcast episode, Chloe talked about mapping her way out of PTSD. Can she elaborate on this process and share some methods for others looking to reclaim ownership of their body and emotions after traumatic experiences?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. This is the less funny part of the Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mapping my way out of PTSD experiences, and I'm definitely somebody who, when I'm going through probably the worst parts of my life, I kind of take notes, not literally in journals, but with myself, because I want to make use of it. So in terms of mapping my way out of PTSD, first of all, please make sure that whatever caused the PTSD is not in your environment anymore. Secondly, as much as is possible, because we do have ex-partners, okay? Secondly, like, the event should be over and the body and your nervous system will need to catch up with that information. And as you know, as Bessel van der Kolk states, he wrote "The Body Keeps the Score." The nervous system, the event isn't 3 years ago, whenever it happened. It's carried in your body. So what we want to do next is start to drop into the nervous system to really start to feel the bits of your nervous system that still think it's going on, and start to speak directly to those parts to calm them down. And this is where nobody talks enough about trauma expansion. This is where you align your relationship with yourself, where your self-loyalty and your integrity to self and the inability to go against yourself then comes in, because the body and yourself need to know that like, as much as you possibly can, you're never going to let that happen to you again. And PTSD places are ultimately hell. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And because they are so painful, eventually you will get to a place where you start to see it coming, and you can start to choose to not go there. That's not spiritual bypassing. I'm an embodiment coach. I will feel it all. But it's sort of saying, do you know what? We're going to leave that thought over there, because I know that thought leads to the whole of my PTSD. And today we're going to go over here instead. And I might need to call a friend, or I might need to go for a walk. But I'm going to choose self-loyalty, not to put myself through the spiral of pain again. And that's a new neural pathway that's going, I know where that leads, and we're going to do something else because I love me and I value me, and I didn't deserve probably that event in the first place. And to wrap that up, because it's a very deep question, and you probably need a really skilled practitioner to support you around this level of work, and I would really recommend that you're really fussy and you find someone really good. Write yourself as the heroine of your story. So you're the person who survived the trauma. You're the person who bust yourself out of the PTSD. You're the person who went on. I had a joke with my friend the other day about rage success. You're the person who went on and became who you are because you managed to include that event and then walk on by. And trauma expands you into a different shape, and you grieve the shape that you are no longer, and then you grow into this badass shape, but because you were big enough and brave enough to move through it. And of course there's tender bits that you will always need to carry. Like I have my tender bits that I have to carry so carefully, but like actually I fucking watch me thrive. So write yourself the narrative where you're the character that survived and moved on in whatever way, whether that's owning your own garden or like, being able to walk into a coffee shop and not have a panic attack, whatever it is. Those small things are your big wins. I love you, whoever asked that.
I know that we got a related question from a listener who asked if there was a time frame, like how long would it take to be able to feel intimate or engaged? I'll let you take it in whatever that means for you, after experiencing trauma, after and I don't know if it's a traumatic event or systemic trauma, long-term trauma.
First of all, you won't feel the same forever. It's probably the best thing I ever heard. I remember saying to somebody, am I always going to feel like this? And actually what they said was, I don't know. But the thing is, we can't rush the body into integrating a traumatic event. We just have to give it attention and love until it's ready to feel safe again, and keep offering it safety until it's willing to release the event. So for one person that might happen really slowly, and for another person that might happen strangely fast. But once again, you do it in your own time. You don't do it on anybody else's timeline. To say, aren't you over it by now? No bullshit. No, I'm not. And so it'll be different for everybody depending on also what processes they use to digest it. But with trauma, it's really good to get help and to have the support of somebody really skilled, and really surround yourself with besties. Besties are the best. And your address book will change. Yeah.
Your address book will change.
Yeah. Yeah, the flakies just fall away. You're like, couldn't walk through the fire with me. Never mind. The feral friends appear. Don't worry.
We gravitate towards each other. We find each other.
Yeah.
The magnetism of feral nature.
Yeah.
Really nice. And I really, you mentioned this early in your answer to this question, and I think I'd like you to just expand on it a little bit more, because you talked about the neural pathways and how you are creating a new neural pathway. And I think that's related to time as well, right? That when we have a well-traveled neural pathway, it's harder to get off that road, harder to get off that path. It takes a little more effort.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think it takes practice to step off the main road of your neural pathway, um, and that's okay. And doing the things that you know will take you away from that. And strangely enough, once you realize that neural pathway takes you towards pain, there is motivation not to do that neural pathway. Because for example, I don't want to spend time with the thoughts that take me down towards there. I would like to spend time with some thoughts that just manage my experience until my adrenaline drops, and then I can move into the next part of my day. So, but it does take practice, and be patient with yourself. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but these days, including pleasure in your life is a really important thing, especially if you're going through a traumatic event or in recovery, because the body wants to titrate. The body wants a time away from the pain. And so whatever brings you pleasure, it's really important to have that on your menu and bring it in. And that will help also to create a different neural pathway where pleasurable experiences become something that you input for yourself regularly, and that becomes the norm, whereas maybe you never did them before. So pleasure at this point is really key for yourself. You deserve it.
Even that is such a shift, such a mindset shift, because I grew up in a very puritanical society where pain and work were supposed to be the driving forces for us. And if we had worked hard, then we were good, right? Then that was good. And if we had no pain, no gain, right? Like if we had suffered, then it meant that we were making progress. So even just the reframe of no, healing and expansion happens through pleasure is such, it's revelatory. It's a whole different beast.
Yes. Yeah. It's a very deep feminine beast as well. And I love it as a principle, and it is quite groundbreaking, and it is changing things. But, when hearts are broken, they need love. For people to move from surviving to thriving, they need love, they need pleasure, they need that little thing. And it doesn't need to involve money necessarily either. So I really do think it is quite groundbreaking, and it does go against some of the no pain, no gain thing. And just want to drop in there that women are multi-orgasmic. Men are too, actually. All genders are. So, like, for me, there's a sense of trusting nature being perfect. Like, if pleasure wasn't a good thing, we could only have one orgasm. And we can't. We can have many. I think we're meant to have many, Bree.
If pleasure wasn't a good thing, we could only have one orgasm. Love that.
Love that.
All right. Here's another question, and this one is a little long, but really a really great question. So this listener writes, I lost my husband in June, and I'm also feeling like I've lost my sex life and my sensuality with him. I just kind of want to know how to manage and navigate that. I'm definitely dancing. She does Nia style dance. But even to love myself or masturbate is really sad for me right now. And that's the first time in my life that it's ever been that way. I'm a very sexual person. I'm a very orgasmic person. I've had very positive sex in my life. I've been very lucky in that way. I've been with men and women and non-binary people, and I've just I've just been in touch with my body. So masturbation has never been an issue, but now it's just really horrible and hollow and makes me weep and cry, and I just can't. Oh. But yes, so missing that part of myself, grieving that part of myself, but also feeling at peace about being celibate, and not just celibate because I can't even with myself, but not needing to find that elsewhere and just being kind of content. I've had a really wonderful sex life. I know myself well, and I think it's okay. And maybe that's just what it is for now. Maybe it's not forever, but it feels like for forever. Am I kidding myself? Or is that really where I am? Is it okay to be at peace with celibacy? I've never really felt that before. First of all, thank you so much for asking that question. Thank you for all of the questions, but thank you for giving so much background in that question.
Well, when I hear the question, I want to lean in so that I can feel the soma of the person, because that's where the answer would lie with some of these questions. So it's not generic to everybody, and that's where the one-to-one work involves a lot of feeling as to what would be the shift this person might want to make, or whether actually the new discovery of is it okay to be at peace with celibacy is a really sacred moment. It's just a surprising moment, and the body takes a long time to digest things. So lots of people don't want to have sex because it brings up feelings, and they don't want to feel the feelings, and then they wonder why their libido's gone away. Because when you move a lot of sexual energy through your body, it all the feelings that you didn't quite feel may well arise. So for this incredible person that's dropped in here, and she does, I think it's a she, I'm not sure, they do dance, so they will be processing quite a lot in their body, but it's likely that this body has really coupled sexuality with their husband, and they can't imagine it without them. So there might be a piece of work there where we need to liberate in their nervous system the grief of the husband, which is really needed to grieve, and the body, the somatic field here, or the body itself, will be holding the grief, and that's what keep coming up with the contact of the body. But also that we might need to open a space for this person to allow and give permission to, and this would be deep work that I would do in session, allow and give permission to them, and find out whether they're allowing themselves to be sexual, whether perhaps that goes against the fact that sex is meant to be with him on some level. But I think really it's to do with grief, and June is very recent, and the body wants to digest only so much at a time. So for right now, being at peace with celibacy is the message the body is telling you what you need. I would be trusting that, and also knowing that it's very unlikely to stay static, particularly as you've been very sexual in your life and had a very positive sex life. But trust, just while all this digestion is going on, that's probably the right way to be approaching it. And if you ever felt that it got stuck or static, then start to do some embodiment practices to make sure those bits of yourself wake up. And it's okay not to want to orgasm. You could just put your hands on your body as today's masturbation. I love you. We're going through a lot. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's the lovemaking for today. And it doesn't need to be big and loud and multi-orgasmic. It's just, I love you. Aren't we going through a lot? And we miss him. We always will.
Thank you, Chloe.
Mm.
I really appreciate this space of self-love, self-intimacy, intimacy with the self, not having to be orgasmic, right? That it can be nurturing, it can be touching, it can be holding. It can be tender.
Mm.
Really beautiful.
Mm.
All right. Moving on. Can you keep the great power that is our amazing sex drive going strong as we age? Power.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think we can. I mean, I don't stand completely behind her work, but if anybody wants to check Kim Imani, she would certainly say yes. But I would say yeah, but don't get stuck that it's going to look the same as this amazing, great power source version of your 20s, 30s, or whatever decade you're in. But the power source at 80, oh my God, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be really hot, right? Wow, I've never made love in an 80-year-old body. But that, like, the fact is, and I'd love to quote, you know, is it Audre Lorde or Ernest Nin? She talks about the erotic as the very force of everything. It's the eros of Earth, the universe. It's the very weave, the fabric that we walk through. So for me, the erotic it's not just about a space between my legs or whether my nipples are feeling hard. It's the fact that I might smell your perfume as you walk past, or when the rain hits the ground, it kicks up that scent. Or what the birds in spring sound like and how the air gets soft. So for me, the great power source is all around me and in me all the time. So unless I'm dead, I think we can keep going.
Can a high sex drive continue relatively unchanged into older age?
I think it's a similar answer. I think a high sex drive, yes. You do need, though, to keep connecting. It's like anything. It's like if you eat less food, your appetite's going to decrease because your stomach's going to shrink a bit. So you have to nourish and feed that sex drive with what works for you. That might be different at different times. Often women later in life, the way they listen to their body, it starts to say, oh, could you touch me a bit slower? Or like, actually, I really want to explore this now. Or oils and scents, or like, today I feel like this, tomorrow I'll feel like that. So I think it's about nourishing and working with it, because anything you neglect is likely to decrease. Things you place your attention on are likely to increase or stay the same, stay nourished. Just, it's a relationship. So a sex drive, your relationship with your sex drive needs to be nourished in order to keep that going.
The way that you've just spoken about that brought up another question for me. This doesn't come from a listener. This is from me. And I'm like, Chloe, help me.
Yeah.
No, but it's a question that I hear a lot. The thing that I hear a lot from my listeners on Pause to Go are about, they want to know about hormones. They want to know what medicine they can take, what medical treatment they can undergo to feel like their body is not changing as much, to feel like they have that their body feels comfortable in the same way, that they're not having the emotional lability, they're not having the dryness, they're not having the itchiness, all of the side effects that come with massive hormonal changes in perimenopause and menopause. All of the approaches that we've talked about here are behavioral approaches, right? Changing the way that we talk to our bodies, see our partners, experience life, attending. It's a very mindful approach, and maybe some oils and maybe some physical enhancements. Do you have any thoughts on how to, and I know that you are not a medical practitioner, so I'm not suggesting that you would make a recommendation about hormone treatments, but I am curious to know, what are your thoughts on how people can navigate that space between letting their bodies age and continue the way they would without medical interventions, and getting help, getting medical support for people who feel like they need it?
I think we've got to really address this as a culture as well as individually. And so we've made certain decisions. So lots of women these days are having kids later. Then they're hitting the perimenopause and the menopause, and perhaps their kids are still at home. They've still got to run at a speed that a woman in the 50s would have already had her kids, and they'd probably be 20 or have left home. So there's a clash there for those parents, for that woman, because there's not the space that the perimenopause and menopause requires of us to say, I want more pauses now. Definitely, I want more time for myself. I want me to come first. My estrogen's dropped. It's time for me to run my own show. But they're still having to look after children in a way that clashes with that. So I think in terms of things like HRT, some of that thirst for those things is because we're still running at a speed, and therefore we need a bit of a boost to be able to do what's required of us. And I wouldn't. I mean, I used to work in adult psychiatry, and so that for me, I'm not a sort of I'm not an all or nothing person. I think it's really about an individual finding out for themselves what makes them worse. If some estrogen makes you feel less tired, and the progesterone helps you sleep better, and therefore you enjoy your life more, maybe that's a great choice for you. But I would like to take away for women the pressure to not be moody. In that podcast, I mentioned the ground that I stand on is shaking, and it is a time to shed our skins. Women are great at shedding skins. We do it every month for years. And so don't be taking HRT because your partner thinks you're moody. You're meant to be moody, you know. Or the pressure to look good and not age, like that's really harsh if that's the place it's coming from, as opposed to my laughter lines got stronger and my prayer hands are more prayy. I love your friend. Yeah, so it's about having more compassion for our experience as we live in this modern world, and it's a very fast-paced world, and we do sit down less. Yeah.
I really appreciate that answer, and it makes me think about how earlier in our talk today you spoke about the experience where a medical practitioner told you that you needed a stitch, right? You needed something there. And I think that
One of my prayer hands.
So I feel like, mentioning that we're going so fast, it's very easy to rely on what we're hearing or what a doctor tells us is a quick fix, and to slow down, and if you can, and it is a privilege to be able to slow down. I will also say that. But if we are able to slow down enough to really sort of listen to the options, listen to what our body is telling us, and then listen to the options that are available to us without feeling like, so that we are prescribing, so that we have agency. Sovereignty, I think, is a word that you use often with your body, so that we have sovereignty as we make choices about what we put into our bodies, what we put onto our bodies, and what we put our bodies in. So So thank you. Thank you for going there with me and going off-road a little bit with me there.
Yeah.
That may bring
I
us
think
to...
it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important because, like, I'd love if we could see an audience now, like, hands up if you had 3 different medical practitioners give you different advice for what your body needed. You know, like, I've come away spinning sometimes. And, you know, and then you're phoning your girlfriend, oh, I've run out of estrogen. Can I come and borrow some of yours? It's like, yeah, pop over. We're going to have this amazing solidarity. You know, and you can't even read the packet because your eyes have gone anyway. and so I'm wary about the advice that I get from institutions because they probably haven't got your best interests at heart. That's probably the best stance to take. And then tune in because they offer excellent medical advice also. I've given you a paradox there.
Yeah.
But
well,
like
that's the nature.
Use your feminine, give your feminine bullshit radar a little bit of like, you know, oh, well, you only need 1 pump. I'm like, I need 2. Let's be joking. I know I need 2. I'm in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is related to the last question. Will my wet bits stay wet?
I love the person that asked this. Oh,
I love it too.
yes, they will, baby. Because I know you're going to keep them wet. Yes, they will stay wet, but they might stay wet in a different way, and get yourself some premium products that might help you stay wet. Keep your relationship with your sensuality and your sexuality your own, your version of you, your version of what sex and wetness means, and you know, play around with coconut oil, play around with olive oil, go to the kitchen, get your wet bits wet with whatever you want to get them wet with. And, you know, perhaps you need more time than you used to get your wet bits wet. So make sure you listen to her because she might say, no, a little bit longer, please. I know we used to do it this way, but I want to do it this way now.
Give me time.
Yeah. Was it in the podcast we talked about getting fussier? Maybe the wet bits are fussier.
I would also say, as someone who has experimented in this realm a bit, that you can try a number of different... It's kind of fun to try different products and to see which one works. I went through several that I did not like. Ones that were all over Instagram, ones that were all over the doctor's office, ones that everybody said this is the way to go, did not work for me. And then I found one sort of in a random place that does work for me, that I enjoy for now. And so don't be discouraged if it takes several tries to find the whatever encouragement your wet bits need to stay wet, if it takes several different tries to do that.
Yeah, and that can be a playful dance of sort of like, well, that didn't work. You know, they sell you like, oh, the lube that's not going to irritate you. It's like, well, it did irritate me.
Yeah.
We're moving on. Yeah,
Me
that's
too.
very playful. I like that. My wet bit now does not feel wet. It feels itchy.
Like sandpaper. It's kind of burning and not in a good way. So before I leave, before I send you on your way to bed,
yes,
Chloe, first of all, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here, for doing the podcast, and then coming on for the Q&A. It's such a joy to hear your thoughts on this. I feel safe with you, and I know that other people must feel that way too. And it's just such a gift that you bring to this space. So thank you. I know that you are offering very generously a free call for potential clients, one free call.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what topics are typically explored in those calls? And how can someone prepare to get the very most out of that experience? If they only have a limited amount of time with you, what can they do to prepare?
Yeah. I think it's good to have an idea of what you might want to work with in that call. And if we have time, we can go into some embodiment. So you'll start to digest stuff straight away. But also some people really need to tell their story. And that's a really amazing place as well. There's not much that I haven't heard. So it's a really safe, confidential space. So sometimes people will have to just hand me their plate of spaghetti and say, this is what my life looks like. Please let me unravel it. And other people might sort of say, this event happened and I don't want to feel like this way forever. And I'll help you with that. I'll help you with that. I am fiercely loyal. I really will help you with that. But if you give me your plate of spaghetti of all your narratives, I'm really expert at picking out probably the first one that we should go to, and then we'll go to B, and then we'll go to C. And that's what I'm trained to do, that I'll spot the hot topics and I'll make sure that I'll bookmark it and we'll get there so that your plate feels less like spaghetti in the end.
I love that. And how can we find you and get in touch with you?
Head on to my website, I think, and there is a little button that you can press where you can book the free call. It's the discovery call you want, and you can also email me as well. So if there's not times on there that you can make, and actually, if your question didn't get answered, contact Bree or me, and we'll email you also if we don't do it in the comments. But head on over to the website. So that's feralgrace.net.
Wonderful. And I know that you are also offering them a discount for Sex and Sovereignty. So why don't you tell a little bit about Sex and Sovereignty and tell them about the discount?
I'm so excited by Sex and Sovereignty. It's a women-only space. We are going to be dropping into body practices, body awakening practices. So I'll introduce a concept, then we're going to do body awakening practices, and then we're going to dance because I'm a 5 rhythms trained teacher. I hold dance spaces a lot for over 20 years. So then we're going to dance all together. And I will connect for you your sensuality and your leadership. And there's a reason why people repress sexuality. It's because you get these empowered people walking around, with a constant access to source. And that might mean that you start painting. It might mean that you change your job. It might mean that suddenly, the thing that you've always wanted to do, you've ended up ticking 5 on your bucket list. So within 5 weeks online, we're going to be waking ourselves up, and the group of feral women will be supporting each other. I'll be there taking you through it. And we're going to step into our next level leadership. They'll be starting podcasts.
So they should mention, if they are interested in joining Sex and Sovereignty, they should mention Awkward Sage.
Yeah, and you'll get half price. Yeah. If you mention Bree in the Awkward Sage, you'll get half price.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. What a gift.
That's on my website too. Yeah, what a gift. I'm really happy. That's such a nice giveaway, especially for this crew. We're going to have fun. I like fun.
It sounds amazing. And is it virtual and in person if you're all dancing together, or is it all virtual?
It's all virtual. And if you're shy, you can turn your camera off. That's fine. It's not performative. You can do whatever you want. You can do it your way. I'm really interested in you doing it your way. Yeah, but it'll be online, and it'll be lunchtime USA, evening time UK. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's so fun to be in the feral club with you.
It's going to be our new meme, isn't it, Bree?
It is.
Yeah, I love being in the feral club with you. Yeah.
Well,
This is so good.
here's to being feral, and until next time.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for listening and all your questions. And yeah, may you be brave and outrageous and tender.
Indeed. Thank you all. See you soon.